Hi, I'm Nate, 38, and I used to believe family would always make room for you until mine asked me to step out of the photo. It started with a group text, one of those cheerful, over-punctuated ones from my mom. Christmas Eve at our place. White elephant, fondue bar, matching PJs encouraged. Normal. Until 5 minutes later, she called. Nate, honey, quick thing. About the invite. I was already pulling Christmas bins from the garage when she said it. We're doing a theme this year. Clean lines, neutral palette. You know how your brother is launching his YouTube channel? Sure, I said. I didn't, she inhaled. And he's bringing his fiancé's family to meet us. They're very refined. So, just adults this time, okay? Less chaos. Less chaos meant my twins, Riley and Max, 8 years old and louder than a fire drill in a tile bathroom. Beautiful, wild, brilliant little chaos goblins. I paused, arm buried in the bin marked glitter Y. What, so they're not invited? It's just this year. Be flexible, she said, like I was a shipping container. I said, okay, because I've learned that arguing with my mother is like trying to pause a hurricane by holding up a yield sign. That night, I broke the news to the kids, told them we'd do our own Christmas Eve party. They didn't cry, they just nodded, then asked if we could still make the cheese volcano, which is what they call fondue. The next morning, my doorbell rang at 9:03 a.m. Standing there in a coordinated tableau were my mom, already flushed with confrontation, my dad, a human sigh, my younger brother Chris, a startup CEO with a phone addiction, and his fiancée Daphne, who looked like she walked out of a brand mood board titled Effortless Winter Elegance. She smiled at me like I was a broken chair someone left on the curb. You're the one who refuses to compromise for the family aesthetic, she said. I blinked. I'm sorry, are we shooting a perfume ad or having Christmas? Chris adjusted his coat and said, it's not personal, it's just, optics. I glanced inside my house, glitter snowflakes on the windows. Riley's painting of a purple Santa hung slightly crooked. Max's Lego Christmas dragon half chewed by the dog Chaos? Absolutely. Also? Home. Mom cleared her throat. We just thought we could talk it out, as a family. And I knew. They weren't here to apologize. They were here to pitch. I opened the door wider and said, come on in. Let's talk about your holiday content strategy. They filed in like a corporate delegation, Daphne clutching a beige leather tote. Chris already scanning my shelves like he was mentally filtering out the bright colors. Mom immediately zeroed in on the mantle. Do we need this many colors? She asked, gesturing at the row of hand-painted wooden reindeer Riley had made with googly eyes and hot glue trauma. They're festive, I said, and 6 years old. Dad lingered by the door, like he might still make a break for it. Chris sat on the armrest of my couch, like furniture was too pedestrian for full sitting. Daphne stayed standing, too sharp to get comfortable. No, So, she started like she was opening a meeting. We're filming a Christmas dinner for the Softly Gathered YouTube channel. It's going to be an episode. Family harmony, aesthetic traditions, generational style, like an anthropology of joy. I just blinked. Did you say anthropology of joy? She nodded, but curated, not messy. And children, especially spirited ones, can be unpredictable on camera. Max chose that moment to run by the hallway in full Spider-Man pajamas, wielding a spatula like a sword, and yelling, Ninja Toast. Daphne flinched like someone had aimed a Nerf gun at her aura. Chris raised a hand. That's what we're trying to avoid. I looked at him. You mean children acting like children? He spread his hands like I was being unreasonable. Just until the footage wraps, then we can do the usual thing. The usual thing, I repeated, where my kids get sidelined until your brand is safe? Mom stepped in. Nate, you're overreacting. This is important to Christopher's career, Daphne's too. Oh, of course, I said. How could I forget the sacred power of beige candles and B-roll? That's when Daphne pulled out her phone and said, we're not excluding your kids. We're just recontextualizing the experience. I stared at her. Are you seriously focus grouping my family? Chris exhaled like I was making him late for his product launch. Look, we can do a separate kid event. Candy canes, DIY ornaments. You can even wear your ugly sweater. Generous, I said. Mom tried her earnest tone. Honey, you have such a good eye. You could help style the shoot. We even thought you could contribute to the catering budget, just to get things off the ground. There it was, the real reason they'd come. Not to explain, not to apologize, to ask for money. Again I smiled, not the nice kind. So just to be clear, I said, counting on my fingers, you're asking me to fund your kid-free Christmas, contribute my design skills, and leave my actual children out of the holiday entirely? They all nodded in different rhythms, like it made sense. And I laughed, just once, low and sharp. Well, I said, walking to the kitchen where Max had abandoned the spatula in the syrup drawer. I hope your anthropology of joy includes an exhibit on boundaries. Mom stiffened. Nate, no, I said, holding up a hand. Here's the deal. I'm not giving you money. I'm not loaning you my camera, my software, or my damn self-respect, and I'm definitely not explaining to my kids why their cousins got Christmas and they got crumbs. Chris stood. You're being dramatic. No, I said, louder. I'm being clear. You want to curate joy, curate it without me. I opened the front door. Cold air surged in like a cleansing tide. They stood still, blinking. You can go now, I said. I've got pancakes to make and chaos to supervise. They left without another word. Outside, I watched them file into their SUV like rejected contestants from a reality show called Who's the Most Polished. Inside, Riley handed me a sticky note that said, "You're a hero. Can I have whipped cream now?" I taped it to the fridge. Then I opened my laptop, changed every shared password, canceled one catering deposit I'd been suckered into last week, and emailed Chris a PayPal request. Memo: emotional labor, interest accrued. No response. But the quiet in my house felt like peace, not silence. And I knew I wasn't done. 3 days later, the group chat exploded. It started with Mom's favorite passive-aggressive opener. Since we're all adults here, followed by a 10-paragraph essay that could have been titled, "How dare you hurt me with your boundaries?" Apparently, word had gotten out, specifically to Aunt Ginny, who had questions about why Nate's kids weren't in the Christmas plans. She doesn't get it, Mom had written. She's never understood branding. And then the kicker: Daphne's family is funding part of the shoot. We need to maintain a standard. I reread it twice standard. Riley walked in wearing a tutu over pajamas and a superhero cape. Max followed with a harmonica he was trying to play through a snorkel mask. And I thought, yup, no standards here, just legends. Still, the group chat rolled on. Chris, bro, I said this was just a one-time thing. Stop blowing it up. Daphne, we're not villains, we're visionaries. Dad, can we please all just compromise? Me, I did. I compromised the first 20 times. This is me correcting the math. Then Chris sent the real gem, a link to his brand's funding page. He'd launched a family-forward media project and was seeking community investment for meaningful content. There, in the sample campaign video, was a clip of our childhood Christmases, our old house, our dad in plaid, my 8-year-old self holding a camcorder and yelling action at Chris uncredited. Used without asking. I stared at the screen and felt the ground tilt sideways. That footage lived on a drive he borrowed last year to digitize for Dad's birthday. He'd turned our actual memories into his aesthetic, my labor into his content. I copied the link, saved it, and quietly filed a copyright claim. 10 minutes later, he texted me directly. Bro, seriously? You filed a takedown? We're brothers. Me, I was also the cameraman, the editor, and the unpaid intern. You don't get to remix my childhood into a highlight reel for profit silence. Then the twist I didn't expect. A message from Daphne. Just one line. I didn't know you shot those. It felt honest, not damage control, just a small, sharp truth. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a fresh document, started writing down every favor, loan, and emotional write-off I'd made for this family over the years. It was 2 pages before I even got to 2019. Riley appeared beside me and asked, "Are you making a list for Santa?" Sort of, I said, but this one's just for me. Because somewhere between the fondue bar and the beige branding, I'd realized something. It's not that my family didn't see value in me. It's that they saw too much and assumed they could use it without paying the cost. So this was the part where I started charging interest. By the end of that week, my parents went full Cold War diplomacy. No more group texts, just independent outreach, like 2 embassies trying to negotiate with a rogue state Mom called first, using her classic opener, "I don't know what you told your aunt, but now everyone's in our business." I was making dinner, specifically boxed mac and cheese with a side of chaos. Max was building a ketchup moat on his plate. Riley was trying to braid a spaghetti noodle. I put her on speaker. "All I told Aunt Ginny was the truth," I said, "that you invited me to Christmas and not my kids, because they weren't neutral-toned enough." She gasped. That is not what I said. "Want me to read the text?" Long pause. Then she switched tactics. "You've always had a flair for dramatics, Nate. This is exactly why we didn't want a scene." I laughed. You made a documentary-style dinner party with a guest list curated to match your Pinterest board. But I'm the dramatic one? That's unfair, she snapped. We asked for one evening of your cooperation. You asked me to make my kids disappear, I corrected, flipping the grilled cheese. Big difference. Then she hit me with the soft knife. It just would have been easier. You know they're a lot. My jaw clenched so hard I tasted metal. They're 8, I said slowly. They're not a malfunctioning fog machine. They're children. I didn't mean, but you did, I said. You meant they're too loud for your candlelight B-roll and too messy for your brand partners. And instead of being honest about that, you tried to dress it up in aesthetic language and pretend it was about me being difficult. Nathan, no, I said. You don't get to weaponize family while evicting the parts that make it real. Click, I hung up. 2 hours later, Dad texted, just wanted to say, I think you're overcorrecting. Your mom's upset. This isn't worth blowing up Christmas. I stared at the message for a long time, then replied with a photo of the twins building a couch fort and a single sentence. This is my Christmas, it's already perfect. No reply. The next morning, I got an email from Chris's startup account. Subject line, final collaboration opportunity. Urgent. It was a pitch deck, a literal PowerPoint presentation. Page 1 had a photo of my kids cropped out. Badly, I might add, and a mock-up of me smiling under the headline. Family First Creative Director joins Legacy Brand Campaign. I almost choked on my coffee. Page 2 listed my skills like I was a stolen LinkedIn profile. Design, editing, emotional storytelling, reputation boost via dad persona. Page 3, a revenue breakdown of what they expected to earn from the video, complete with projected sponsorship tiers. Tier 1, $5,000, minimalist tableware. Tier 2, $10,000, organic wine partner. Tier 3, $15,000, lifestyle book pre-order tie-in. There was even a footnote. Compensation TBD. Family discount applies. I didn't reply. I forwarded the entire thing to a friend of mine in IP law, not to sue, just to ask a question. He wrote back, they're monetizing your name, work, and likeness. Without a contract, you could end this in 5 minutes. And that's when it clicked. For years, I'd been letting them use me like software they didn't want to pay for login. Download the help, pretend the license wasn't real. So I opened Chris's email again, scrolled to the bottom, and hit reply all. Subject final collaboration opportunity. Decline message. Remove all mentions of my name, image, work, or footage from your materials. You do not have my consent to use them in any form, including but not limited to public video pitches or promotional content. Any violation will be treated as a legal matter. Then I attached a PDF, a single page. Bold font. I am not your brand, I am your brother. You made me choose. I chose my kids. Send. Riley walked in wearing 2 different socks and holding a clipboard she made out of cardboard and stickers. Dad, she said seriously, we're going to need more glitter for the Christmas dragon float. Obviously, I said. We had a float to design Christmas was back on, just not the version they could monetize. 2 nights before Christmas, my doorbell rang again. It was dark, cold, and far too late for UPS. I opened the door, expecting a neighbor, or possibly a gingerbread peace offering from Mom. Instead, Chris. No camera crew, no Daphne, just him, looking like a preppy scarecrow who'd been left in the wind too long. Hey, he said. I didn't say anything. He kicked at the step. Can I come in? Are you here to apologize? He sighed. I'm here to talk. I looked past him into the stillness. Riley and Max were asleep. Their Christmas float, a red wagon covered in string lights, glitter tape, and an alarming amount of cotton balls, parked in the middle of the living room like a kid-made miracle. 5 minutes, I said, stepping aside. He sat on the couch like it might judge him. I know I screwed up. He started. Which part? I asked. The part where you tried to cut out my kids for your candle porn dinner party? Or the part where you PowerPointed me like a free asset? He winced. Okay, yeah, all of it. I folded my arms. It wasn't personal, he said. Daphne's family has this whole way of doing things. Everything's planned, minimal, chill, and I wanted to look like I had my life together. You wanted to look curated, I corrected. Yeah, maybe, he said, but I didn't realize I was making you the sacrifice. I shook my head. No, Chris, you did realize it. You just thought I'd take it. Again. He rubbed his hands together, suddenly cold. I thought you were used to it. That stopped me. Not because it was wrong, but because it was honest. I was used to it, used to stepping in, stepping back, stepping aside. Whatever was needed, I walked to the kitchen, pulled down a tin of leftover Christmas cookies the kids had made, and offered it to him. He blinked. You're not gonna yell? No, because I'm too tired, and because the yelling's been done, just not always out loud. He picked a cookie shaped like a reindeer with 3 eyes and said, I don't know how to fix it. You don't get to fix it, I said. Not with one visit and a sad cookie. You earn it. By showing up when there's no brand involved. By calling Max on his birthday. By learning Riley's favorite animal and actually remembering it. He looked up. It's an axolotl. I raised an eyebrow. Okay, I googled it last week. On progress. He stood slowly. If I cancel the shoot, everything, and make it just a dinner, no cameras, no partners, would you come? With the kids? He nodded. With the kids. I thought about it. Thought about the list in my kitchen cabinet. Thought about what Riley said the other night when she asked, do we have to go where we're not wanted? No, I said, but we might go where we're being invited back, right? Chris ran a hand through his hair. I messed it all up. Yep, I said, but Christmas isn't about perfection. It's about showing up with your mess and being loved anyway. He looked at the float in the living room. Is that Santa on a dragon? It's a seasonal lizard, I said. Keep up. He chuckled. Can I help finish it? I thought about it, then nodded once. Sure, but if you touch the glitter drawer, you die. He grinned, and for the first time in a long time, he looked like my brother, not a brand. We sat on the floor, surrounded by craft supplies and memory, while the kids slept upstairs, oblivious to the small miracle happening below one paper star at a time. The next morning, I woke up to the unmistakable sound of duct tape being ripped from the roll, followed by Max yelling, "We need more structural integrity!" I stumbled into the living room to find Riley perched on a step stool, balancing a can of whipped cream in one hand and a pine cone in the other. Chris was kneeling beside the float, tying a string of battery lights around the wagon's wheels like he'd just been inducted into the cult of Kid Chaos. Morning, he said, holding up a spatula like a peace flag. Riley grinned. Uncle Chris says we're making holiday architecture. Max added, this is now an amphibious vehicle. For when Santa has to cross rivers. I blinked. Sure, why not? We had cocoa by 8:30, glitter in the butter dish by 9. By 10, the kids had briefed Chris on Santa's evolving transportation needs, and I found him sincerely asking, so wait, the dragon breathes snow. That's when I knew something had shifted, not because he was trying to impress me, but because he was letting the chaos in, sitting in it, laughing, and then, because the universe always balances sincerity with absurdity, I got a text from Mom, just wanted to say thank you. Chris said you're open to joining us. That means so much. Also, the photographer already refunded our deposit. Long story, we'll discuss later. So we're just doing a simple dinner now. Nothing fancy. Theme is elegant and cozy. Bringing a bottle of wine or side dish would be appreciated. I showed Chris. He groaned. Elegant and cozy. That's the worst kind of trap. I replied with a single thumbs up and 0 side dish commitments. Later that afternoon, while the kids were cutting snowflakes with safety scissors and the dog was eating 40% of them, Chris leaned against the counter and said, "You know, I always thought you liked being the fixer." I liked being needed, I said, but I got tired of being used. He nodded. That makes sense. I handed him the paper chain Riley insisted we tape across the car windows for the drive to Grandma's. You ever think maybe we all just inherited the same story? What story? That if you're useful enough, they'll love you. He was quiet a long time. Daphne always said I tried to earn love like it's a job. She's not wrong, I said, but at least you've got a performance review now. We laughed, then sat quietly, because that's how healing happens sometimes, not in speeches, in space. That night, while the kids were decorating sugar cookies with the precision of blind squirrels, Chris stood up and made a declaration. I want to make amends, officially, so I brought something. He reached into his coat and pulled out a battered box wrapped in newsprint. I wasn't sure what to get you. So I brought this. Inside, my old camcorder, the one from our childhood, the one I thought had been lost in the attic, buried under tax records and emotional neglect. I digitized the tapes, he said. All of them. Labeled the files. Even the terrible one where you made me play 6 characters in a haunted Christmas musical. My throat did that weird tight thing I figured. He added, you should be the one to decide what gets shared, what stays ours. I didn't say anything, just reached for the box, held it tight, and nodded once. It wasn't an apology in words. It was better. It was a choice. To return what was mine and let me keep it. Not for content, not for credit, just because it mattered. Max accidentally flung frosting into the ceiling fan, launching peppermint shrapnel across the kitchen. And Chris, he just ducked and laughed. Good, he was finally learning the cost of joy and the value. Christmas Eve arrived like a kid with too much sugar and no brakes. The wagon float had been upgraded overnight. Riley taped a hand-drawn flag that read Slay 2. 0. And Max added cardboard wings that immediately folded under their own ambition. It was glorious. We loaded up the car with a casserole I didn't make, a bag of wrapped gifts, and a reusable shopping tote full of juice boxes because my trust in Mom's kid-friendly planning was low. Chris rode with us, crammed in the back seat between the twins, and a stuffed dragon wearing a Santa hat. Riley kept quizzing him on his axolotl facts. Are they nocturnal? Probably. What do they eat? Whatever's not taped to a wagon. She nodded solemnly. You'll do. We arrived at my parents' house just before 5. The first sign things were different. No tripod in the foyer. No ring light disguised as a floor lamp. No Daphne. No champagne flutes lined up like crystal soldiers. Just Mom, holding a casserole dish, apron dusted with flour, looking nervous. Nate, she said. Mom, we stared at each other. One beat too long. Then she crouched down to the kids. Riley, Max. Her voice wobbled slightly. I owe you two a big, real apology. They froze, mid-squabble over who got to carry the flag. I was wrong, she continued. You didn't do anything. I made a grown-up mistake and forgot what Christmas is really for. I'm sorry I made you feel unwanted. Max blinked. Do we still get dessert? She laughed, eyes glassy. Absolutely. Riley studied her like a lie detector in glitter leggings. Then she gave a single nod. Okay, but next time you want a fancy dinner, you have to invite the dragon. Deal, Mom whispered. Inside, things felt weirdly normal. Dad hugged me like he'd just emerged from witness protection. He mumbled something about not knowing the full story, and I said, you never do. He nodded like that was fair. The table had mismatched plates, off-brand sparkling cider, and a centerpiece that looked like it had been panic purchased from a gas station flower bucket. I'd never liked a table more. We sat down to dinner. Not a photo shoot, not a branded experience, just a meal. Chris carved the roast like a man who'd watched 3 YouTube tutorials and still wasn't sure Max kept whispering axolotl every time he passed the potatoes. Riley narrated the meal like a food critic for elves. My dad told a story he'd told 5 times before and nobody corrected him. It was awkward, imperfect, and completely alive. Midway through dinner, Mom reached under the table and slid something into my hand. A photo not printed, not edited, just a 4x6 snapshot. Me, holding Riley on my hip in the kitchen from 3 years ago. Flour on both our faces. Max at the table behind us, shirtless, eating shredded cheese directly from the bag like a feral raccoon. You took this, I asked quietly. She nodded. Found it in a drawer. Thought it was too messy at the time. Now I think it's perfect. I looked at her. Thank you, I said. Thank you, she replied, for not burning the whole house down. I considered it. She grinned. I know. Later, after presents and cocoa and more glitter than legally advisable, we packed up to leave. No one asked me to stay later. No one asked for anything at all. As I buckled Riley in, she whispered, "This Christmas feels like a story." It is one, I said, and we still get to write the ending. Make it a good one, she said, then promptly fell asleep holding the dragon. Chris handed me the leftover cookies and a wink. No branding, no bullshit, he said. I think I like real life better. I smiled. Careful, you're starting to sound like a person. He snorted, don't tell Instagram. We drove home slow, the kids snoring in the back seat, the wagon float bumping gently in the trunk. The world outside was quiet, but inside our car, it felt like Christmas again. New Year's morning, I woke up to find Max asleep on my chest, a half-eaten cookie in his hand, and Riley standing on the couch, wrapped in a blanket like a queen surveying her kingdom. Dad, she whispered, the dragon float has evolved. I blinked. Into what? A sleigh ship with lasers. Obviously, the holidays were over, but the story hadn't ended. Not really. What happened at Christmas wasn't a resolution, it was a pivot. A crack in the old structure that led in something real. A few days later, I got a letter, not a text, not an email. An actual letter in Mom's handwriting, the slanty kind she only uses when she's trying to be careful. It said, Nate, I've been thinking about what you said, about what I said, about how many times we asked you to be smaller, quieter, easier. I want to be clear that I see it now. I see how we've let your reliability become our excuse for laziness. And I want you to know, I don't expect you to forgive that overnight. But I'd like to earn my place back if you'll let me. You're a good father, a better one than we taught you how to be. I'm proud of you. Love, Mom. I sat with that letter a long time. Then I folded it carefully and taped it inside the cabinet next to my list. Not because it erased anything, but because it proved that things can change. When someone does the work, later that week, Chris sent a video. No music, no voiceover, just raw footage. The kids decorating cookies, Riley yelling, "Sleigh ship engaged," and Max burping Jingle Bells Chris in the background, covered in frosting, laughing so hard he had to sit down. The caption, "This is better than content." I replied, "Yeah, this is life." And for once, we were aligned. Back at work, I returned to my own design projects, but something had shifted. I stopped treating everything like a crisis. I let good enough be enough. When a client asked for just a few last-minute tweaks, I said, "That's outside the scope, but I'm happy to discuss for a new rate." She blinked, then she agreed. Progress. One night, Riley helped me tape our glittery snowflake decorations back into a box marked "Use again or else." She held up her clipboard and asked, "What's next on the calendar?" I paused, then said, "Whatever we want. No fancy parties, only ones with dragons." She smiled and said, "Then I want to make a party called Just Loud Enough." We did one Sunday. We invited Aunt Ginny, a couple of neighbors, and even Aunt Linda, who brought the world's ugliest cake and the world's best attitude, no matching napkins, no content strategy, just real people, real mess, real joy. After everyone left, I stood at the sink, rinsing cups, and Riley came up behind me. "Hey, Dad." "Yeah?" "I think this Christmas story had 2 morals." "Oh, yeah?" "Yeah. 1, you don't shrink for people who only love the edited version of you. And 2, she grinned, family doesn't need matching pajamas, just matching hearts." I almost dropped the plate. I knelt down, pulled her into a hug, and said, "I'm putting that one in ink." Later that night, I stood alone in the quiet of the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and read my list again. I don't pay to be treated badly. My kids are not negotiable. No is a complete sentence. Family is a verb. Then I added a 5th line. Real love doesn't ask you to shrink. I closed the cabinet, turned off the lights, and went to bed. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't dream about being enough. I dreamed about being free.